Hello! This video has been a long time in the making. I wanted to talk about my favorite Star Wars CCG cards. I've talked about this game before on the channel. Thought it could be a good opportunity both to show you sort of what my favorite cards, what I like about them, but also introduce you to some ideas about the game and collecting it. This originally was going to be a top 5 video, but I literally couldn't pick only 5 cards that I love. It had to be 10, so I've got my top 10. This one is the most obvious one to start with. I've shown it before. This is Darth Vader. It was a rare one, kind of like a card that's twice as rare in the original set, which was called Premier. There are 2 versions of Premier. The first set, one has black borders, which is called Limited, and then there's Unlimited with white borders. The black borders is more valuable, more rare. So this card is absolutely iconic. What's weird about the game, but that makes it fun from a collecting standpoint, is the main characters are the rarest cards. They're all these super obscure characters, like these aliens from the Cantina, and just everything that are extremely common. And Darth Vader, back in the day in 1995 was extremely hard to get. It was worth, I think, about $50. Today, this is probably worth about $35 in good condition. We'll talk more about condition later, but it's extremely hard to find mint condition cards from the first set, Premier Limited. The print quality was just so terrible. This one, I don't know what it would grade. Probably, no better than an 8. I don't think I've ever seen one that would grade better than an 8. But at least at this point, I'm not as into grading these cards. I have a few graded ones, but more so just collecting them raw. So anyway, Darth Vader, number 1, most obvious. Number 2 for me is another character. This one is Boba Fett from the Cloud City set. This was the 5th like main expansion for the game. Also pretty iconic and very valuable and rare when it came out. Interestingly, this set, Cloud City, along with 2 others, Premier Unlimited, the white border one, and also Jabba's Palace, were overprinted, and then they kept issuing those packs and other sort of collection box type things. So over time, the value of this, has gone way down. But most recently, the game in general has seen a big wave in popularity and price spikes along with it, just like in Pokemon. And so this card has gone back. It's probably worth about $8 now. But I just remember seeing this back in the day and just thinking this picture looks incredible. There are some really cool things about the way that they made this game, not just from a gameplay standpoint, because the game is incredibly complex and interesting, but also from a collecting standpoint, that apparently at the time they developed a special technology where they could capture images from the film reels of the original Star Wars movies and get higher quality images than anyone else had done before. And so they spent a lot of time picking the specific frames, like individual frames in the movies they could capture and take an image from after zooming in. And this one for Boba Fett just looks, with the colors and everything, absolutely incredible, in my opinion. So third on my list is this card called Son of Skywalker. It's another version of Luke, right? So there are different versions of the main characters. Each have different names, but you can still only have one of them in play at a time in the game. And so Son of Skywalker I thought was cool because it's just a different name. It's not like calling him Luke or, Master Luke or Luke Skywalker. But this is, after he... or I guess right before he finds out that Darth Vader is his father. This card is iconic for me because I think Dagobah, this expansion, the 4th one, was around the last one that was out when I stopped collecting. This was when I was a little kid, at least for a while. And I remember, this card being so sought after and hard to get. Now it's worth like, $10. Most recently, maybe before that, was worth only $5. But I remember my friend... going to a comic book store with me and his dad, and he saw this behind the case being sold as a single. I think it was probably $20 at the time, which, was a lot, both due to inflation, but also just for being kids. And he asked his dad if he could buy it, and his dad said yes. And I thought it was just so unfair. It's like, what, we've been buying, one booster pack a month trying to pull cards like this, and he just got the single. I felt like buying singles at the time was almost like cheating, and I was so jealous. And so now that I'm an adult, I've bought multiple copies of this card and reminisce both about our friendship and also that experience. So number 4 for me is not a character card. It is a starship, the Millennium Falcon. Also one of the rare 1 cards from the original Premier set, so there's no expansion symbol. That means it's in the first set, just like Darth Vader is. So this one was extremely hard to get, still is extremely hard to get in good condition. But this one probably right now is worth about $15. But I just love, again, the specific image they captured of the Millennium Falcon, like in flight. Just brings back so many memories of the movie and of collecting this game as a kid. Of course, when I was a kid, I didn't have Son of Skywalker, I didn't have Millennium Falcon, I didn't have any of, the so-called main characters or main ships, because, again, they were extremely rare or expensive to buy as singles. But just looking at pictures of them in magazines like Scry magazine, it's kind of cool feeling to now actually be able to buy these. Number 5 for me is a foil card. I'll explain that in a minute, but first the name Daughter of Skywalker. So this is a play off the Son of Skywalker card. It's Leia, after she finds out that she's Luke's brother. This is in the Endor set, right? So that's when that happens in the Return of the Jedi on the planet Endor. And so Endor was the first set that had foils, and it was actually the only set ever that had, the only regular expansion that had foils. The other ones came in these sets called Reflections, that were basically reprint sets. But in the Endor set, one in some number of cards could be replaced by foils, so it came in place of the rare card, and then there were 3 different tiers of rarity for the foils. So this was a second tier, not the ultra rare, but this was a super rare. And so you get this card in non-foil too. I love both the foil and the non-foil look of it. I have multiple of each, but this foil to me is just so cool. It's the entire, unlike the later foils, which I'll show, the entire card except for the picture is foil, and this kind of rainbow that shines in the light. And I love that this look, too, of Princess Leia when she's on Endor and friends with the Ewoks. So number 6 for me is another starship, and this one is extremely unique. It's called the Executor, also from the Dagobah set, just like Son of Skywalker, except you'll notice it's a horizontal card. To my knowledge, this is the only horizontal card, and just to capture the look of how big, this is the Super Star Destroyer. So massive, massive, massive starship, and they capture the look of it by making it horizontal, which I think is so cool. The game is full of Easter eggs like that, just different funny things that they write on the flavor text, and ways of designing the cards and sort of making them slightly different and quirky. But this one I just think looks incredible. The black border almost looks like that background of space with the stars is bleeding into the black border, so it kind of looks like it's full art, even though it's not. And just insane stats here, right? So basically, the way to read stats in this game, if you're comparing it to something like Magic, right, is this is the deploy cost, basically the mana cost. This is forfeit, which is something different. If it dies, how much it's worth. So you want a low deploy, a high forfeit. Power is basically like its strength. Ability is basically like defense. And then this number up here is for destiny. It's for drawing cards from the deck. So what's cool about the game is it's a self-contained system. You don't need dice or anything. Your deck is your life total, right? Each card in your deck is worth 1 life point. And instead of rolling dice or flipping coins, you draw cards from the top of your deck, and that destiny number is how much they add to you. So less important than these stats over here. So this card, the Executor, is just insane stats, right? Costs 15 to deploy, power 12, armor 12. Kind of absurd, but I don't play the game a lot. I basically barely know how to play because it's so complicated, but I understand it is a playable card in its own right. And then I lied about being the only horizontal card because the next one is also kind of cheating here because it's a similar card, but this is the other version of the Executor that they printed in a different set. The set is Death Star 2, the last non-prequel set of the game, which is sort of widely seen as the favorite set of all time. It had the ultra rares, which maybe I'll show another time. This version of the Executor, I just love the picture perhaps even more because you can see this planet in the background. I chose here the foil version of it. So this foil version came in actually a reprint set called Reflections 2 that reprinted cards from all the sets, including Death Star 2, in foil versions. There was 1 foil per pack. And this foil version of it, I just think looks incredible and shimmers as well. All right, so what number are we up to? I guess next is number 8. So this one, I think, is really cool and just shows people a whole other side of this game and this hobby, which is that not only did they print cards in the original trilogy, they also printed cards from the expanded universe. That was unfortunately relegated to non-canon. Now I think it's called Star Wars Legends or something, but it's an alternate storyline that was expanded in lots of different books, including the ones you might have seen like Shadows of the Empire with Prince Caesar or Shizor, however you pronounce it. And this character, Mara Jade, I think is so cool. So she was basically originally dark side. This is a dark side card. She was a spy and worked for the Emperor. I think at some point she turns and becomes good and even marries Luke, and they have children together. It's a cool storyline I never really knew, but I just think the card looks awesome. She has a purple lightsaber. This is the set symbol for premium, so all the premium cards in Pokemon that would be like promo cards came in sort of special box sets or things like that, or giveaways. This one is from a set called Enhanced Jabba's Palace, where they basically just repackage Jabba's Palace and put these promo cards. So you could basically be guaranteed to get this if you got the right box of it, kind of like a collection box for Pokemon. But over time, it's increased in value. Now this one's worth, I should talk about value for the other ones. This one's worth about $10. This one's worth about $15. This is worth about $20 to $25 right now. But in my opinion, extremely special and cool. And what's cool also about this is not a scene from a movie, but because the designers of the game wanted all the images to be live action, not cartoon or illustrated, they actually hired a model, an actress, to dress up in this costume and pose, and they sort of took multiple pictures of her for multiple different cards, but these are actually original images for the card game, and from a lot of fans' perspective, one of the only sort of legitimate or authentic depictions of Mara Jade that wasn't illustrated or a cartoon. So I mentioned the prequels. Towards the very end of the game's print run, this was in 2001, they started printing cards from Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And unfortunately, the game ended, which I'll explain why in a minute, before they got to Episode 2 and Episode 3, but Episode 1. So this, these sets, in my opinion, have something really, really cool, which is that some of the cards could be what's called alternate image, AI cards, and you see there's a gold ring around this expansion symbol. This is the expansion of Coruscant, so the second Episode 1 expansion they printed. So one in every 3 versions of this card, Queen Amidala, Ruler of Naboo, would have the special alternate image as opposed to the regular image. And I think this alternate image just looks amazing. This card, when I first started collecting this game about a year and a half ago-ish, this card was worth about $65. I think that's how much I paid for the first copy that I got. Now this card is worth about $200. And in fact, I obtained a few copies of this. One of them was just such beautiful condition. I sent it into PSA to get graded, so I'm waiting for it to get back. But these alternate image cards, sometimes they zoom up really close on the face, and I just think it looks absolutely beautiful with the colors and everything. Then my last card, number 10, or I guess number 1, if we're going in reverse order of how much I like these, is also from the prequel, and it is also an alternate image, but it's a foil version of the alternate image. So it came in the set Reflections 3, the last sort of reprint set that had foil cards, and so they made a foil version of an alternate image from Coruscant of Darth Maul. So this one is called Darth Maul Young Apprentice. It's the alternate image, and it's a foil version of the alternate image that came in the Reflections 3 reprint set. And this one just looks striking to me. And so this is the new version of foil that came in Reflections 2 and 3, where not all of the background is foil, just this little symbol in the corner, the lines and the borders. The borders you can see are foil, and then parts of the image, so in this case the face and the eyes are foil. And again, when I started collecting, this card was still, extremely valuable, probably one of the most valuable singles in the game. It was probably $150. Now it's up to, I think I sold a copy of this that I had for $350. It might be worth that much, or $400 today, but probably the second or third most valuable single in the game. I'm excited to show other cards I do have the most valuable ones. I have the Japanese cards. I have, in my opinion, sort of everything of note is what I've been trying to collect, at least. So I'm looking forward to showing those in a future video. But for today, just want to give an overview of the game. And as I show these again, I can just talk about what happened at the very end. So in 2001, the company Decipher rushed out the last few sets because they knew they were losing the license to print the game from Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm instead sold it to Wizards of the Coast, the company that makes Magic the Gathering, because they thought that Wizards of the Coast could produce a game for Star Wars that was more popular, even though this game, at the height of its popularity, was said to rival even Magic, and certainly Pokemon, because it was before Pokemon's heyday. So Wizards of the Coast printed a different Star Wars card game called the Star Wars TCG, instead of this one, which is the CCG. And that one still has a following, just like this game, even though it's also out of print. But even when this game went out of print, people continued playing it. And then there was a players committee that basically took over, and they still design new cards to this day that, are not official cards, but they're kind of these virtual slips you can print out and put over cards so they can keep the metagame fresh and with new cards. I don't collect, those slips, because you could just print them out and put them on the cards. I collect the original cards. And still love them to this day. So I'm very curious to hear what you think of this, if these cards do as much for you as they do for me, if you remember this game from the 90s when you were a kid. If you're interested in learning more about it, I'm happy to make more videos. In the meantime, I'll link in the description to something called the Collecting Encyclopedia that some players made that basically describe this game from a collector's perspective. So feel free to leave your comments. I'm happy to answer questions as well, and hope to see you again in another video. Thanks for watching.